Hi, this is Nishan Varun from The Edge. Tonight we're actually unveiling our third property line under the Edge brand, thanks to all the support and all the feedback that we've sort of been getting. So we're calling it Seeing Beyond, which is essentially sort of to sort of frame what exactly Seeing Beyond is and what you can sort of expect out of the series, right? So at the Edge, at the brand, we believe that that staying ahead is one of the most important things that a content platform or thought leaders or anybody else can do in these times. And so introducing this segment called Seeing Beyond is essentially just to keep track and to sort of stay ahead of all the future trends that could affect work and that could affect the future of work essentially, right? So first guest tonight, we have Aditya Kulkarni, the founder of Stoa School, which is India's first startup MBA that helps you grow a business brain I think within 24 weeks or so, and helps you find your feet in India's thriving business ecosystem. So Aditya, if I were to talk about Aditya's pedigree, he's from I'm Bangalore, and he's also BITS Pilani alumnus, right? So I think that makes Aditya somebody who's actually developed some skin in the game, and then he knows that look, this is a better way than the the conventional alternate MBA that's out there. So Aditya, I request you to sort of introduce yourself and tell us more about what Stuart does as well too.
So one of the things is like, as we are running Stoa, people just hate it when I say, like when we introduce ourselves, oh, I'm Bangalore. They're like, hey, you're doing this, like new credentialing and this and that. And why do you claim the same brands that you're sort of fighting against? But here is my thought process, right? And these brands are great. Of course, IMABC, XLRI. And the reason they are great is because they have made a certain promise to their customers or consumers and have delivered on that promise consistently. The sad thing is, even after so many years of being in business, I would say, they have failed to scale the quality of learning, right? Like, so if you go to IIM Bangalore today, even the batch size is 500, and that's simply not enough. The way our business ecosystem is growing, we need more trained talent, people, and there are a lot of ambitious folks who can't actually make through the filtering criteria. Like, so for example, if you look at CAT, at least at my time, your 10th standard marks mattered, your 12th standard marks mattered, your graduation mattered, and so on and so forth. And that essentially means that anybody, for example, from non-engineering background, is very unlikely to make it to an IIM. And that is why we thought, and the other, I think, trend, if you see, is a lot of people are questioning that whole assumption that the education needs to end when you're like 21 or 23 if you do your MBA. And that is also because the business is changing so fast. And, for example, the companies which were cool even 10 years back are not the coolest employers today, right? Like in my college when I graduated, like NVIDIA, or if I remember from IMB, like a bunch of folks were not interested in Flipkart. It's 2013, right? And I'm pretty sure like a lot of folks are regretting that decision to like, go for a traditional or a PNG, HUL, TAS, or whatever, and instead of Flipkart, right? So newer companies are coming up, newer sectors are getting developed. For example, agri-tech. I'm not really sure, right? Like our MBA programs can respond to the need of agri-tech companies in terms of the talent that they need. And that is where more nimble, more fast-changing cohort-based programs could serve great, right? So, for example, STOA's program is a general management program, but there are other programs which teach about product management. There are programs that teach about marketing. I'm sure there are programs which teach about SaaS. There will be programs which will teach about agri-tech, maybe climate tech, and so on and so forth. And you sort of already see this happening, right? Like we are one of those programs, but there are all these programs, and I think this ecosystem is very interesting because it is also changing mindsets. Just the other day I saw this Capgemini JD where they said, hey, it is okay if you have MBA or any other practical cohort-based program. And this was always an objection, right? Like, oh, cohort-based programs won't sort of turn out to be great credentials, but HRs seem to be sort of, and that sort of has started, I would say.
So Aditya, I mean, I really resonate with all of that. And okay, I'm not any IIM or its product at all, and I have my own biases, which I shall not mention. But let's get right in, Aditya. Let's ask you some questions. So, how relevant do you think is an MBA in 2021? Right, premier MBA with all the access in the network, or an alternate MBA that is cost effective? What,
Sure.
let's put you in a spot. What would you pick today?
Yeah. So let's look at this from first principles. Yeah, and if you have to create a sort of decision matrix, MBA really provides four things, right? It provides learning, which is more deeper understanding about the world of business and how business success is achieved. So learning is one component. The second component, as you mentioned rightly, is networking. Right? You go and meet these amazing folks for 2 years. Then there is the whole job at the end of it, right? So, for example, if you are, let's say, a mechanical graduate from BITS Pilani today, the kind of salary that you will get out of BITS is not going to be very attractive. So, for you, it makes sense to prepare for CAT and, like, go spend 2 years, spend that 25 lakh rupees, and probably get that 25 lakh plus kind of job, which is, if you're mechanical, chemical, civil engineer, right? Like a lot of these, or if you're graduating from DU, a lot of these salaries are not considered at undergrad level, are not very attractive. So learning, networking, job, and then there is the signaling bit, right? Like, oh, I'm Bangalore, I'm Ahmedabad, so all these four are components of a typical MBA. Now, the main problem is getting in, right? So, I mean, what I would say is, if you can get in into IM, ABCL, XLRI, maybe ISB, go for it. Yeah, and but also evaluate. So, for example, if you already have 4 years of experience, you're essentially be going to compete with a lot of freshers, a lot of people with less than 18 months of experience if you go to IM, ABC. ISB may be the only option you really have, which means like about 40 lakhs. So all of this is essentially about risk reward, right? Like you have to sort of leave your job, put money on the table, and then hope that, like, on the other side, you will really sort of make it. And the job that you will get will pay you much better than what you're getting currently. Now, the interesting thing about alternate MBA is they provide you an option value, which is you don't have to leave your job. You save time because these are mostly part-time programs, so on and so forth, and these cost far less. Yeah. So you're essentially buying an option, which is, if I want to change my career tracks, or I want to sort of break out into some of the high growing companies, these are sort of like tunnels into that part, right? So these are really options on future in some sense. And on the other side, if you look at hiring partners, they are I mean, if I'm hiring from IIM, I can only hire once in a year, but my business needs are growing. I'm like, I need to hire people on a monthly basis, right? So I also need programs which graduate people on a monthly basis, maybe, right? And this is where that sort of strategic positioning, if you will, in MBA terms, comes into play, right? So in some sense, we are a marketplace between talent and the hiring partners, and we sort of provide that learning, we provide that network, we provide that signaling, and we provide that job, right? Of course, there is a long way to go, right? Like, for example, today we still have a very small sample base. If we have to say, oh, these are our average salaries and this is our highest salary, and because it is on a very small base, but even those numbers seem like, I mean, there is no reason why Stoa cannot be a top 10 MBA program in like next 1 year or so.
Very interesting. So, but then here's the thing, right? One of the things that you mentioned, I think, which was one of the, I think, the interesting linchpin of the entire, you know, thinking that goes into choosing whether you want to do an MBA or not, is the fact that it all comes down to trade-offs, the risk and reward that you mentioned, right? So, while a premier MBA and everything offers a brand, it offers a certain sort of, I mean, how do I put this? Surety of some sort, right? Like, people go there and they show that, hey, look, they could be paired with somebody who's probably got military experience, or probably somebody who's started their business. And then, so the kind of diverse mix that they get, right? The kind of money that they're probably investing may seem, worth it or not, right? But the only value proposition from what I've heard so far is the fact that alternate MBAs offer this cost effectiveness, and then the signaling and the community flow is something that adds on, but that is something that will compound over a period of time, as in when your sample size increases. So if somebody were to think of, let's say, joining Stoa or doing things like this, from today to the next 5 years, what what sort of first principle thinking that they should really start from, like, on these aspects?
So one of the things is, a lot of people don't even like the classroom education, right? So if you're an adult, 24-year-old, You don't want to go to like a, and by the way, this is the problem with executive MBA or, other MBA programs which are online, right? These are still classroom, like, and you can't force adults to learn, by the way.
Exactly. You
Okay.
can't.
And they have access to Netflix. So if you are providing education here, you're competing against, I mean, essentially you're like, competing for their time. It means
It
you're
comes out to that
competing.
jobs to be done framework. I mean, because you're not, people think that, hey, alternate MBAs compete, I mean, sorry, or probably MBAs for that matter, classroom learning compete with other similar classroom, but hey, they're actually competing with the attention span that goes into Netflix, into all of these things. So it's
Yes.
a very interesting thing that, yeah.
In fact, today only I was having a discussion, and I think Stoa is an interesting experiment because it is at the crossroads between education and entertainment, right? And even the way we look at sort of developing content is very different, right? It's almost like we think in terms of like a sitcom or a Friends or Seinfeld. Here I have this 10-minute segment. What is the hook? What is the middle? What is the close? How do I design these 6 segments and still achieve the learning outcomes? Right, so the thought process is very different. Who teaches is very different. It is not a professor with a PhD, right? It is an industry expert who is in the thick of things and has like stories rather than frameworks, or a lot of times, yeah, stories that rather than frameworks. So this is how also it is different in terms of learning experience, I would say.
Aditya, I guess the last segment is, today, can you talk about the opportunities it provides? Because you said that you are a marketplace, right? And if we are talking about that, it needs to be competitive. So, what are the kind of opportunities that, an alternate MBA can provide? Who should take up an alternate MBA also? Do you have personas defined? Because that can really help the audience understand that I don't fall in this bucket, but I fall here, and probably this is something for me. Because we also want through this series to educate people about the various opportunities that they have available for themselves, right? So if
Yeah.
you can kind of throw out a little information there about how to gauge this as an opportunity, how should I gauge this, sorry, how do I gauge this as an alternative, and what are the opportunities I have therefore? If we can talk a little bit about that, please.
Yeah. So, for example, if I'm just talking about Stoa very objectively, the companies which I've interviewed are graduates. They include Swiggy, they include Cred, they include Clarisites, they include Newton School, includes Techie, which is a GSP funded EdTech play. These are all top of my Raise, right? Praveen's new company. And what we are right now facing is there are more jobs that are coming at Stoa than the number of graduates that we, and by the way, we are very young. We are 9 months into our journey. Our cohort 2 is still ongoing, right? And right now we are in a situation where there are a lot of people who want to hire from Stoa. Unfortunately, we don't have enough pool for them to sort of give it to. And what I've increasingly realized, answering the second part of your question, Stoa's current program, we have designed it for people who have between 2 to 5 years of experience, for whom IIM is not a very attractive. I mean, if instead of preparing 6 months from CAT, you might as well do Stoa, right, and make that transition. So 2 to 5 years is our sweet spot, and the reason for that is, again, uh, by the way, we do have people who come in 20 years of experience also, right? But those are typically outliers. We have designed it for people who have between 2 to 5 years of experience. Maybe they're working in a coding job, they're working in a business role, and all of that is fine. But that 2 to 5 years is sort of our sweet spot.
Pretty interesting. So can you tell a bit more, like, just so before we conclude, right, in terms of how does the entire model of store work, in sense, uh, what's the financial, investment that people might need to make, and how is the course designed essentially, and all of those little aspects that could really, probably someone, watching this could, take something, take concrete steps.
Sure.
Yeah.
So there are really three things when it comes from our customer experience point of view, right? There is learning, there is community, and then there is basically career success, right? Now, when it comes to learning, we run 60 sessions, live sessions over 24 weeks. These are essentially 12 weekends with 5 sessions each. And these cover largely, everything that you need to know from a business success point of view, including venture creation, product management, marketing, branding, sales, operations, finance, leadership or behavior, and general management. Then there are 6 case weekends. So these are 24-hour case competitions, very challenging, sort of force you to work with 30 different people. So by the way, through these 24 weeks, you end up working with 30 different people. And it is one of the challenges for most people. Yeah, because people could be very diverse, their working styles could be different. So that is the learning part. Then on weekday evenings, typically Tuesday, Thursday, we run community nights. We bring in folks to talk about different career paths, what they do. There is also networking events, speed meetings. We also do a bunch of fun stuff, right? Like improv, quiz nights, game nights, and so on and so forth. And the third part is career success, right? So right from mentoring, we also pay for people's ICF coaching. And I think that, by the way, one of the things that I missed on earlier, MBA is also sort of thought of, most people treat MBA as sort of solution to confusion. Yeah, which is, oh, I have wasted already 4 years in undergrad and like I'm still confused. So let me go and spend 2 more years, maybe I'll get clarity. And what we figured is bringing in ICF coaches could actually help people build clarity. So we pay for that, and then mentoring, and then of course sourcing of opportunities, resume prep, interview prep, the normal MBA stuff. Right. So 3 pillars really: learning, community, career success.
Seems like a super holistic thing that Stoa is really offering, especially given the fact that because your classroom size is a little smaller, you
Yeah.
get to sort of give like dedicated focus to every pupil that sort of becomes a part of your program. Yeah, I think that brings us to the end of this very first Seeing Beyond episode. Aditya and Nisha, it was
One
great.
thing before
Yeah,
just one thing, please.
yeah,
Aditya, something just struck me when you were talking, right? Cohort-based courses, if we can spend a minute on that, it's supposed to be this huge global trend with
exactly. Yeah.
Maven and everything coming in and everybody talking about the fact that people don't need content. I just saw this tweet today. It's not about content, it's about engagement and how much can you bring people together and what kind of people can you bring together through these courses, right? Can you spend a minute talking about the whole concept of cohort-based courses and a little bit about where do you see this and how do you see this panning out in India, considering that you have already done 9 months of this, and I feel like somewhere you guys have started and a lot of others might follow.
Yeah. So if you look at this concept of cohort based, right, it's nothing new, by the way. Like, I mean, colleges are cohort based. The only problem was you had to go to a physical setting and spend time there to even meet interesting people, diverse people. Now, because of COVID, because of the way internet has shaped, maybe geo, it is much easier to just meet diverse set of people online, right? And what cohort based courses really are they are internet native education institutions, right? They're internet native because something like an On Deck or something like a Reforge, something like Stoa, something like 10K designers just allows people to meet each other without having to go to a physical space and spend few years there. So that is the first difference, I say, right? Like, these are internet native. The second part of this really is, if you look at IIMs, they took about 50 years or 40, 50 years to, build their brand. And if you look at ISB, it took like 15, 20 years, maybe, or 15 years rather. I think cohort-based courses and most of these cohort-based courses, because they are so nimble and they can respond to what is changing in the market, a lot of these cohort-based courses will end up building the same kind of brand in maybe about 5 years, right? And they will have the same kind of pull that, let's say, an ISB or IIM has today in about 5 years. And that to me is exciting, right? Because education institutions typically is like, oh, we raised 300 crore to create a campus. We created a campus out of 30 lakhs, right? And our campus resides on Discord. So I think that's very interesting to me.
But I think the fine print of that, the way that I sort of see it, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the fact that the kind of feedback loops that you guys have at every little stage of the entire learning process is something that I don't think any of the traditional MBAs could really compete with. And I think that's where your real competitive edge is sustainably going to be maintained. That
Yeah, in
and
9 months, we have gone through 3 iterations.
exactly.
Right. So that's very fast, right? And I don't know any institution which changes its curriculum even in a decade or
Yeah,
so.
yeah. I was just going to say, like, I mean, I'd really like to know when was the last time they really revised a chapter and or even corrected a typo for that matter, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a fantastic episode. We'll link Stoa's link in the description. We'll also put in Aditya's LinkedIn as well. If you'd like to connect with him, feel free to do that. Thanks again for being a part of very first Seeing Beyond episode. Nisha, great hosting with you again. Thanks again. This was The Edge.